Here on The Colour of Country Life, good to be catching up again with Nicola Centofanti, the Shadow Minister for Primary Industries and Regions. Nicola, how are you today?
Good, thanks, Ricky. Good morning to you and your listeners.
Now, look, we got your press release, these cuts to PERSA. You've done some deeper diving through the state budget and found a pretty savage amount of cuts there.
Yeah, certainly have, Ricky. Obviously, the budget was brought down late last week, and the Labor Malinowski government has made it very clear in its first budget that they don't understand and don't appreciate the value of South Australia's agricultural sector. In this budget already, we've seen $15.9 million cut to the PERSA budget over the forward estimates of operating efficiencies. So, Ricky, on average, that's $4 million per year that PERSA needs to find savings for.
And what was the Liberal Party's, position with the budget with PERSA? Had you been increasing funding each year for PERSA yourselves?
Yes, we had been, and in fact, we actually spent more in the last, in our 2021-2022 budget, particularly when it came to biosecurity. Obviously, fruit fly. We're tackling fruit fly in the Riverland. We were tackling fruit fly in metropolitan Adelaide, so we invested very heavily in biosecurity. My concern in this budget as well is the lack of initiatives in regards to foot and mouth disease. So we have seen at the end of last month, the Indonesian government reported that 20,000 livestock had been infected by foot and mouth disease in 16 provinces in Indonesia. And as you're aware, Ricky, Indonesia is located quite close to Australia geographically. So there's definitely some unease about the risk of spread to South Australia. And foot and mouth disease is a really highly contagious viral disease of livestock, and it has severe consequences for animal health. And we, the opposition, thought that that should be high on the state government's priority list. We didn't see it in that list. I certainly hope that Minister will be looking closely in the future to change that priority list, because it is important. It's an important role for state and territory governments to work closely with the Commonwealth as well as industry bodies for preparedness for foot and mouth disease and to educate the community on the impact of foot and mouth disease.
If I'm not mistaken, you've got a bit of veterinary background yourself. Is that right, Nicola?
Certainly do, yeah. 15 years of working in mixed practice. So, obviously foot and mouth disease from a veterinary point of view is something that no vet ever wants to see. But it's something that we need to be prepared for.
Well, I think Australia's Chief Vet and Deputy Chief Vet have both headed over to Indonesia recent weeks to get, an assessment, and not only that, to also offer help to the Indonesian people to deal with that, not just on the foot and mouth, but lumpy skin disease as well. But this has been described in Australia as the biggest threat biosecurity Australia's ever faced. What does it say about the overall funding of biosecurity in Australia? Does it need a rethink about whether we're adequately resourced?
Oh, look, I think so, Ricky. And in fact, there was some modelling that was done by the Australian Bureau of Agriculture and Resource Economics and Sciences back in 2013. And that determines that a large outbreak of foot and mouth disease in Australia would have a significant financial impact. And at that time, that was estimated to be around $50 billion over 10 years. So, that is really significant. It really needs to be at the forefront of state and Commonwealth government.
Yeah, we're talking with Dr. Jared Greenville from ABARES a bit later this morning. We'll get an update figure on that from them. What are you going to do about this issue about the funding for PERSA within the state parliament or just within state politics in general to get that reviewed?
Yeah, so look, I'll be continuing to scrutinise this budget over the coming weeks through the estimates process. But in the meantime, I'm calling on Minister Scriven to stand up for the regions and primary producers and reverse these cuts. I mean, these blows come at a time where cost pressures are hitting our primary industries and regions hard, Ricky. We've got increasing costs in fuel, freight, fertiliser, energy. We've got labour shortages. All of these inputs are placing pressure on delivering regional services. So at a time when the Malinowski Labor government should be investing more in regional South Australia and primary industries to assist our food producers and farming families with rising costs in doing business. They are instead cutting funds to the tune of $15.9 million in efficiency measures over the forward estimates, not to mention a further decrease in the budget of $15.3 million on what was budgeted in 2021, 2022. It's not good enough, Ricky, and I think it's incredibly disappointing.
And when you talk about regional South Australia in general, you've expressed the view that the Malinauskas government is city-centric and will look to just keep finding savings and make cuts in regional SA.
Exactly. In regards to roads, it's disappointing to see that out of the $7.83 billion worth of road funding in the state budget over the next 4 years, that only $467.4 million is actually allocated to regional roads. And of that, 40% of that is being spent in Adelaide Hills and the South Eastern Freeway, Ricky. So, that really leaves the majority of our state's roads network with little to no funding, and that's disappointing.
All right, Nicola, drive safe yourself and keep us posted on what you're able to unearth about these cuts to PIRSA and biosecurity. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Ricky.